The wind cut through the Colorado mountains like a knife, sharp and merciless. It howled between the pines, carrying the promise of another cruel winter. Snow had been falling for 3 straight days, covering everything in a heavy white silence. In a small, broken-down cabin near Cedar Ridge, 19-year-old Eliza Hawthorne stood in the corner, her arms wrapped protectively around her swollen belly. Her father's voice was low but cold as he spoke to a stranger who had come riding through the storm that morning. "She's young and strong," Samuel Hawthorne said, his tone businesslike. "Can cook, clean, mend. The babes do come spring. More hands for work later. You won't find a better bargain this side of Denver." The stranger, a rough-looking man with a black coat and eyes like cold iron, studied Eliza with unsettling interest. "A pregnant girl's more burden than blessing," he said flatly. "Folk don't take kindly to unwed mothers." The words made Eliza's stomach twist. She wasn't livestock. She wasn't a burden. But no one in that room seemed to remember that. $20, her father said quickly. "It'll feed the rest of us through the winter." 15, the man countered. "And that's being generous for damaged goods." Damaged goods. The phrase hit her like a slap. She'd made one mistake, trusting Thomas Brennan, the merchant's son who'd whispered of marriage before vanishing when she told him about the baby. That mistake had cost her everything. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't do this. I'll work harder. I'll take in sewing, washing." But Samuel Hawthorne didn't even look at her. 15, then, he said, extending his hand. "Take her tonight." The deal was sealed with a handshake and the jingle of silver coins. Her mother sat near the hearth, her face hidden in her hands, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. "God forgive us," Martha whispered. "God forgive us all." McKenna, that was the man's name, wasted no time. He tied Eliza's wrists with coarse rope as if she might run, ignoring her protests. "Can't take chances," he muttered. "Lost 2 girls already. Won't happen again." Quote, her little sister Ruth peeked from behind a curtain, her wide eyes full of confusion. "Eliza?" she called softly. Eliza forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Go back to bed, sweet girl." It was all she could manage before McKenna jerked the rope, pulling her toward the door. Snow slapped her face as they stepped outside. The cold bit deep, but not as deep as the pain inside her chest. She turned once, seeing her father counting coins by candlelight. He didn't even glance her way. They rode through the night, McKenna on horseback, Eliza walking, tethered like an animal to the saddle. Behind them came another rider, a man named Josiah, scarred and cruel-faced, his breath reeking of whiskey. "This the new one?" Josiah called. "Bound for Mrs. Garrison's place in Denver," McKenna replied. "Pays good for girls, even the ones with a child coming." Eliza froze. She'd heard whispers of such places, houses where women were sold, used, and forgotten. Her baby kicked hard, as if it too felt the terror that flooded her. They stopped near midnight at an abandoned shack. The men built a small fire, passing a bottle between them. Eliza sat near the wall, wrists raw and mind racing. She couldn't let them take her to Denver. She couldn't let her baby be born into that nightmare. When Josiah drifted into drunken sleep and McKenna stepped outside, Eliza worked desperately at the knots, biting the rope until blood filled her mouth. When it finally loosened, she grabbed a burning stick from the fire and swung. Josiah shouted, clutching his arm as she ran into the darkness. "Get her!" McKenna roared behind her. Gunfire cracked through the night. Bark splintered inches from her head as she fled into the trees. The snow was deep, the cold cruel, but fear drove her faster than she thought possible. She slid down a ravine, her hands torn and bleeding, and crawled into a small cave hidden behind ice. Her heart thundered in her chest as she listened to their angry shouts above. "Let the wolves have her," Josiah snarled. "Ain't worth dying for." Their voices faded, leaving only the wind and her ragged breathing. Hours passed before she dared to move again. The cold bit through her thin dress, Her limbs were numb, but she was free, for now. When dawn broke, pale and bitter, Eliza stumbled from the cave. Her strength was nearly gone. Each step felt heavier than the last. Somewhere ahead, faint but clear, came the steady rhythm of an axe striking wood. Where there was an axe, there was a man. And maybe, just maybe, hope. Eliza followed the sound through the trees until her legs gave out beneath her. She collapsed at the base of a pine, the world spinning into gray. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was the axe stopping and heavy footsteps crunching through the snow. Jonah Blackwood wiped the sweat from his brow, though the air was freezing. 32 years old, a lumberjack by trade, he'd chosen the mountains for their silence, a place where ghosts didn't follow. That was when he saw her, a shape in the snow, a girl, barely alive. He dropped his axe and ran. Her skin was white as death, her wrists bruised raw, her belly round with child. Jonah knelt beside her, checking for breath. "Easy now, miss," he murmured, lifting her into his arms. She was so light it broke his heart. "You're safe now." He carried her through the snow to his cabin, a sturdy log home he'd built with his own hands. Inside, he laid her on his bed, wrapped her in blankets, and stoked the fire high. As he warmed her frozen hands, Jonah caught sight of the small wooden cross hanging from her neck. He wondered what kind of cruelty had driven a girl like this into the wilderness. He didn't know her name yet. He didn't know her story. But he knew one thing for certain. Whoever had done this to her would never touch her again. When Eliza woke, the first thing she felt was warmth, a steady, glowing heat that wrapped around her like a blanket after a long, terrible dream. The second thing she noticed was silence, deep, peaceful silence, broken only by the faint crackle of a fire. She blinked her eyes open. The ceiling above her was wooden, smooth and solid. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then the memory came flooding back. The snow, the men, the cave, the running. Her body went cold again, even as she lay wrapped in heavy wool blankets. She tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness stopped her. A deep voice spoke from somewhere nearby. "Easy now, you're safe." Her eyes found the man who'd spoken. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that brushed his collar, and a beard that made him look like the mountains themselves had shaped him. His eyes were steady, kind but cautious, the kind that had seen too much loss to believe in miracles easily. Where am I?" Her voice cracked from thirst. "My cabin," he said simply. "Name's Jonah Blackwood. Found you half buried in the snow this morning. You're lucky I came along when I did." Eliza's gaze darted around the small room. Rough timber walls, a pot simmering over the fire, tools hung neatly on pegs. It felt safe, but her heart still raced. "The men," she whispered. "Are they here? McKenna and Josiah? Did they find me?" Jonah frowned. "No one's been near this place in weeks. You're safe, miss." She relaxed slightly, but still clutched the blanket to her chest. "You should have left me," she murmured. "They'll come looking. You don't know what kind of men they are." "I know the kind," Jonah said quietly, setting a bowl of steaming broth beside her. "The kind who prey on the weak. The kind I've had enough of." Eliza hesitated, then took the bowl in shaking hands. The smell alone nearly made her cry. It had been days since she'd eaten anything warm. She sipped slowly, the heat spreading through her chest. "Thank you," she said softly. Jonah gave a small nod, then went about tending the fire. He didn't ask questions at first, just kept her comfortable, changing out the wet cloth on her forehead, making sure she drank water. His silence was oddly comforting. By evening, she gathered the courage to speak. "You live here alone?" "7 years now," he replied. "Used to be down in town. Had a wife once." The sadness in his tone made her pause. "What happened to her?" He stirred the fire before answering. "She died 4 winters ago. Town said it was an accident. I knew better." His jaw clenched. A rich man wanted something he couldn't have, and when she refused him, he made sure I paid the price for it. Eliza's heart twisted. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Jonah said. "She was too good for this world. I came up here to keep from putting a bullet in someone who wasn't worth the sin." They fell silent again, the fire filling the space between them with soft light. After a while, Jonah looked at her, his gaze steady. "You want to tell me what happened to you?" Eliza hesitated, her throat tightening. She could still see her father's face, lit by candlelight, as he counted those 15 silver dollars. "My father sold me," she said at last. "Sold me to McKenna for $15, said I was a burden." Jonah froze, his hand tightening around the handle of the iron kettle. "Your own kin did that?" "Yes," the word broke in her throat. "He said I brought shame on the family. Because of this." She placed a trembling hand over her belly. Jonah set the kettle down slowly, his knuckles white. "No decent man sells his blood for coin, not ever." Tears slid down Eliza's cheeks. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen. I loved him. Thomas Brennan. He promised to marry me. Then he left when I told him about the baby. My father said I'd ruined us all." Jonah's anger faded into something gentler. Sadness, maybe understanding. "You trusted someone who lied to you. That's not ruin, Eliza. That's just being human." Her eyes widened. You don't think I'm ruined?" He met her gaze, steady and sure. "No, ma'am. You're alive. You fought. You ran. That don't sound like ruin to me." The words hit her harder than she expected. For months, she'd been nothing but shame and regret. Now, for the first time, someone looked at her and saw something else. Strength. Jonah rose, adjusting the blanket around her shoulders. "You need rest. Tomorrow, I'll fix up some clothes for you. My wife's things are still in the trunk. She'd want someone to use them." "I can't take." "She'd want you to," he interrupted gently. "Margaret never could stand waste." Eliza's throat ached. "Why are you helping me?" Jonah paused by the door, his silhouette framed by firelight. "Maybe because someone should have helped my wife when she needed it. Maybe because that baby deserves a chance at life." He stepped outside into the cold night, leaving her staring after him. The wind howled against the walls. But inside, for the first time in weeks, Eliza felt safe. Over the next few days, a rhythm began to form. Jonah rose before dawn, leaving coffee and bread for her before heading into the woods. Eliza cleaned, mended, cooked small meals, and when he returned at dusk, they shared quiet suppers by the fire. He didn't ask more about her past, and she didn't ask about his, but something unspoken grew between them, a fragile, cautious trust. On the fourth night, as snow fell softly outside, Jonah repaired a torn coat while Eliza stirred stew over the fire. "You don't talk much," she said. He looked up, faint smile tugging at his lips. "Never found many words worth saying." "Well," she said, glancing toward him, "I think you say the right ones." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the cabin felt warmer than the fire could ever make it. But even warmth can't hold off the cold forever. That night, as the wind screamed through the pines, Eliza woke with a start. From outside came a sound, a faint crunch of snow, slow, deliberate, circling the cabin. Her heart slammed in her chest. She turned toward the fire, where Jonah slept lightly in his chair, rifle across his lap. "Jonah," she whispered. He was already awake, eyes sharp, finger on the trigger. Outside, the snow whispered again. Then a man's voice called softly through the dark. "Evening, Blackwood. We've been looking for something you might have found." Eliza went pale. She knew that voice. McKenna. Jonah's eyes met hers, steady but fierce. "Get behind me," he said quietly, rising to his full height. The past had found them, and Jonah Blackwood was not about to let it take her back. The knock on the cabin door came like a hammer strike in the silence. Snow drifted through the cracks of the shuttered window, and the firelight flickered against the log walls. Eliza gripped the edge of the blanket, her breath trembling in her chest. Jonah moved with quiet precision, loading a cartridge into the Winchester. "Stay back, Eliza," he whispered. "Don't make a sound." Outside, McKenna's voice slithered through the cold. "Ain't no need for trouble, Blackwood. We just want what's ours." Girl ran off owing a debt. Hand her over and we'll be on our way. Jonah's jaw tightened. Ain't nobody here owes you anything. Turn your horses around. A bitter laugh echoed from beyond the door. You think I don't know she's in there? Saw the smoke from your chimney. We can do this easy or hard. Eliza's heart pounded. Jonah, please, she whispered. If they find me. He cut her off with a look. They're not taking you, Eliza. Not now. Not ever. Then, louder, to the men outside. You've got 5 seconds to ride away before I start counting bodies. The answer came in the form of a gunshot that splintered the window shutter inches from his head. Jonah fired back, quick and precise. The blast echoed through the valley. Horses screamed. A man cursed. 3 left, Jonah said, reloading calmly. Stay low. Quote. Eliza crawled behind the bed, her hands over her ears as bullets tore into the cabin walls. Jonah moved like a man who'd fought this kind of battle before. Controlled, steady, unshaken. When the firing stopped, silence fell again, broken only by the wind. Then came the sound of retreating hooves. Jonah waited a full minute before lowering his rifle. They'll be back, he muttered. And next time they won't knock. Eliza crawled out, shaking. We have to run, don't we? He turned to her, eyes softening. No, Eliza, we stand our ground. They won't get past me. Over the next few days, the cabin became a fortress. Jonah reinforced the door, set traps along the trails, and kept his rifle loaded. Eliza helped where she could, though her body was growing heavier by the day. The baby's kicks had become strong, reminding her of the life she fought to protect. On the 3rd morning, Jonah saddled his horse. I'm going to town, he said. We're running low on food. Sheriff there's a good man. I'll ask him to keep watch for trouble. Eliza's fear flashed in her eyes. What if they find me while you're gone? He reached out, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. You've got my rifle. The door's barred, and I'll be back by nightfall. You trust me? She nodded, her throat tight. With my life. When the sound of his horse faded into the distance, the cabin felt impossibly still. Eliza tried to keep busy, mending clothes, tending the fire, but every creak of wood made her jump. Hours passed. Snow began falling again. By afternoon, her nerves were raw, and the baby restless. She was just about to boil water for tea when she heard it. Hooves. Not one horse. Several. Her blood ran cold. Through the crack in the shutter, she saw them. McKenna, Josiah, and 2 new men. 4 riders. Their coats, dusted with snow. They dismounted, spreading out. She grabbed Jonah's rifle and aimed it at the door, her hands trembling. Miss Hawthorne, McKenna called, his voice oily and false. We don't want no harm. Just come out, nice and easy. Eliza said nothing. He sighed dramatically. I know you're in there. Don't make us come in after you. Quote. When she still didn't respond, Josiah shouted, Boss, we can break the door. They started toward it. Eliza whispered a prayer and pulled the trigger. The rifle kicked against her shoulder, the shot echoing through the trees. One man cried out in pain. Crazy girl's armed, Josiah shouted. Before they could rush the door, another shot cracked through the air, from the woods. This one whistled so close, it took the hat clean off McKenna's head. Jonah's voice boomed from somewhere among the pines. Step away from that cabin! The men froze. Blackwood, McKenna snarled. You're making a mistake. The law's on my side. Then go fetch it, Jonah said coldly. And bring your own coffin while you're at it. He fired again, and one of the hired guns dropped his weapon, screaming. The others panicked. Let's get out of here, one yelled. Josiah grabbed McKenna's arm. Ain't worth dying for her. McKenna's face twisted with hate. This isn't over. He fired one last wild shot at the cabin before retreating. Then the sound of galloping hooves faded into the distance, swallowed by the storm. Jonah appeared minutes later, breath steaming in the cold, rifle still in hand. When Eliza saw him, relief broke through her like sunlight. She ran to him, tears spilling freely. I thought. He caught her gently. You're all right. That's what matters. Her sobs quieted against his chest. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the snow falling softly around them. Back inside, Jonah stoked the fire and checked the windows. "They won't try again," he said. "Not after that." Eliza sat near the hearth, one hand over her belly. "Jonah, what if they come back with the law?" "Then we face it together." He looked at her, voice steady. "You and me, I'll stand by you, Eliza. You've been running long enough." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they weren't from fear. "Why are you so kind to me?" Jonah hesitated, then spoke softly. "Because I was dead inside before you came. Because when I found you in the snow, I found something worth living for again." Quote. She reached out, her hand trembling as it brushed his. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "You've got courage, kindness, and a heart still willing to hope. That's all I need to know." The firelight flickered between them, warm and golden. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, there was peace. Weeks passed, and the snow began to melt. Life in the cabin settled into a quiet rhythm again. Jonah hunted, chopped wood, and repaired tools. Eliza sewed, cooked, and prepared for the baby's arrival. They talked more now, about the future, about second chances, about what it meant to build something new from the ashes. Then, one night, when the sky was full of stars and the mountains glowed silver with moonlight, Eliza felt the first pain. "It's time," she whispered. Jonah didn't panic. He did everything he'd learned from the old midwife in town. Boiled water, tore clean cloth, kept her hand in his while she labored through the night. Hours later, as dawn painted the snow pink and gold, the cry of a newborn filled the cabin. Jonah laughed, a sound half joy, half disbelief. "It's a girl," he said, his voice breaking. "A perfect, strong little girl." Eliza held the baby close, tears streaming down her face. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "She's home," Jonah said softly, "and so are you." He kissed Eliza's forehead, then the baby's tiny hand. The warmth between them was deeper than any fire could give. Outside, the mountains stood silent and proud. Inside, in a cabin built by loss and healed by love, a new family began. The girl who had been sold by her kin had found something greater than safety. She had found forever,